So yesterday I did this video on what deterrence looks like. We defined deterrence, and then we also saw what Putin was saying that was deterring the West and how he was doing it. So I also then saw this video. This is the German opposition leader, Friedrich Merz, who may very well be German chancellor next year. So we're going to watch what he has to say about deterrence, and we're going to watch that after we watch a definition by Anders Puck-Nielsen. But I want to start with this, and this is just a meme. Deterrence, you keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. And that's probably right for many. Now, for deterrence to work, it has to be a credible threat. The enemy has to believe that you're willing to do the thing that will cause him not to do what he is wanting to do. Here's Anders Puck-Nielsen explaining how deterrence works.
It's a useful way to conceptualize it and to illustrate the two most commonly referred to categories of deterrence, namely deterrence by punishment and deterrence by denial. So we can understand the enemy's risk calculation as an equation that says that if the costs are higher than the benefits, then the enemy will be deterred. It wouldn't be worth it to attack because the benefits aren't big enough to justify the costs. But in this equation, there also has to be a consideration about probability, because chance is a part of war and you never know for certain how things will play out. So on both sides of the equation, we have to take probability into account. How high is the likelihood of suffering the costs, and how big is the chance of getting the benefits? So there are basically two ways you can do deterrence. Either you can increase the costs or you can decrease the benefits. If we look at the cost side first, this is what we call deterrence by punishment. We could also call it deterrence by increasing costs. But the point is that you influence the opponent's equation by either increasing the severity of the cost or the probability that it will happen. So if you want to increase the severity of the costs, you would look for things like more firepower and more sophisticated weapons that can inflict a lot of pain. And the ultimate deterrence by punishment weapon is nuclear weapons, because they're so powerful. But you can't rely only on nuclear weapons. You also need the ability to inflict pain on...
Okay, so you can't rely only on nuclear weapons, and that's what Putin's really doing. He's using that deterrence of nuclear weapons, and the other equation would be, for example, giving the West giving Ukraine all the weapons that is possible to inflict damage into Russia, and that would be a deterrence toward Putin. But Putin knows that they're not going to do that, or he's pretty certain from his calculation that they're not going to do it, and so he is not deterred. Now, I was on Red Lines, UATV Red Lines, with Yulia and Anna from Ukraine, and these two ladies were both saying, we're not worried about nuclear weapons, tactical nuclear weapons hitting a nuclear power plant. We don't believe that it's going to happen, and if it happens to us. Like the Russians are doing so much damage as it is. This isn't even like an issue to our Ukrainian minds. And I was just like, wow, that's just amazing. This was just a few days ago. You can go back to UATV and see that. So that's not deterring their mentality. So we have to understand just how deterrence works. Now, let's look at this. This is, again, the Friedrich Merz, who's possibly going to be the next German chancellor if the elections swing his way. Listen to what he has to say. I muted it and I'm going to read. If we in the West are afraid to defend ourselves, then Putin has already won this war against all of us by half. It's a question of how self-confidently we face such aggression. And we have always said in the last decades, an attacker must be afraid of us, that we defend against this attack. And that's why deterrence has always been a threat to say, try not to attack us at all. The Ukrainians, and what I'm saying here is exactly what the British are saying, what the French are saying, what the Americans are increasingly saying, not Joe Biden, but his entire environment. And the only one who is in the way is the German chancellor. And fear is bad advice. That's right. Fear is bad advice. Never take counsel of your fears. But again, if we're afraid, then this opens up all kinds of doors for the enemy to use that fear against us. Okay, just a little bit more about deterrence. I hope that helps clarify things and helps you understand how deterrence works. So thank you, Frederick Mertz, for explaining that. Thank you to Anders Puck-Nielsen. This was a video of his from 2 years ago explaining deterrence, and I hope that helps you understand the process. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, the coffees, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.